Numbers, chapter number 32. Book of Numbers, chapter number 32. I always enjoy being here, and my wife and I will come over on some Thursdays and enjoy the service as well. Preacher Cody's already said this is where we grew up. Started coming here when I was 16 years old. The Lord called me to preach here and put me in the ministry out of this church, and so I'm thankful for the many things that God did right here in this place. And a lot of times I crawled right over there where they're sitting now. There used to be a little walkway right back there, and me and the Lord spent a lot of time right there and did a lot for me there to help me, and so thankful for it. Numbers 32. So I was sitting there thinking, and there's two kinds of people, and me and my wife are both these kind of people. I'm one, she's the other. And that is that whenever you know that something starts at 10 o'clock and it's a 20-minute drive, you leave at 9:30, so you got 10 extra minutes to play with. That's my mindset. You know, you drive 55 miles an hour and you get there on time, and you know, if something happens, you're still okay. My wife, it's a 20-minute drive. She can leave at 9:45 and still be there at 10 o'clock. She's going to make up her time by driving 80 miles an hour. So I said that to say this: we got 30 minutes to get a 45-minute message in. So we're going to drive like my wife does tonight, and we're going to run about 80 miles an hour and get it all in 30 minutes, all right? So Numbers chapter number 32, verse number 1, you'll find our text. It says, "Now the children of Reuben and the children of Gad," give me just a second here, "and the children of Gad had a very great multitude of cattle, and when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that, behold, the place was a place for cattle. The children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spake unto Moses and to Eleazar the priest and unto the princes of the congregation, saying," and you can help yourself with all those names. We'll read down verse number 4. "Even the country which the Lord smote before the congregation of Israel is a land for cattle, and thy servants have cattle." Verse number 5, "Wherefore said they, If we have found grace in thy sight, let this land be given unto thy servants for a possession, and bring us not over Jordan." Sake time, we'll stop there tonight. I began thinking about where we're at in our Bible and where we've come up to. This is the second approach to Canaan, to where they're going to go over into Canaan. You remember the first time they sent the 10 spies over, and two of them come back and said, we can't go. And so they didn't go into Canaan. Here they've approached Canaan again, and they have the opportunity to go in, and they do go, with the exception of two of the tribes. They say, "Look, y'all go on into Canaan, and we'll settle out here on this side of Jordan," and they begin to give their excuses for it. I thought, and just want to give this by way of introduction tonight, we know Canaan land to be that place of victorious Christian living. Now, I know a lot of times we portray it as heaven, and we portray it as that eternity after death, but we know that's not what it is, biblically speaking. In typology, it is that victorious Christian life. And as we understand that, I begin to ask this question to myself: what is going to keep me out of Canaan land this next year? What's going to keep me from walking with the Lord as I should, having victory in my Christian life, and being the Christian that I ought to be? What is it that's going to deter me from being that way? I thought that first group that came to Canaan, and 40 years has now gone past, that generation has died off. What kept them out of Canaan was fear. They got over there and they saw Joshua and Caleb come back, and they said, "Man, you got to see the size of the grapes over there. You got to see what we have the opportunity of partaking in. You've got to see the goodness of God, and we need that land. We can take that land." And the other spies said, "Yeah, we saw those grapes, but we also saw the men eating them grapes. They might be some big grapes, but they were some big men eating them. They might have been some big old apples over there, but they was big men picking them apples." And they said, "We can't do that. We can't handle that." There's a lot of us that aren't going to make it into Canaan because of our fears. We're just not going to serve the Lord like we should. We're not going to be what we ought to be for God because of the fear of what may be or may not be. Thought about the fact that it was their friends that was able to persuade them. You've got two telling them, look, we can go, we can do this, we can manage this. And you've got the others saying, we can't do this, we can't do that, we can't accomplish that. I thought, how many times has that been the case at the house? There's mom and daddy, two, trying to tell their kids how to live, how to dress, how to behave, how to act, got a multitude. Persuade them the other way. Don't listen to the two, but we'll listen to the multitude. Then this crowd, they've come up to Canaan, and part of them, they're going to watch them go in. And they're going to say, let us stay here. Because of their farming or their finances. Hey, there may be somebody in here tonight, and if it is, I'm sorry, I don't know that you did this for a living, but I dare say that there's not anybody who farms in the sense that it is your livelihood. It's just not what it used to be. There's not that many around anymore. Most people who farm, it's because they enjoy it. We have chickens at the house, and it's because my wife wanted chickens. It's not because we're making any money off chickens. As a matter of fact, we're probably going in the hole every month and missing out on a steak dinner because I'm buying chicken feed. But the reality is, we eating eggs. We got eggs. Got a bunch of eggs. We eating deviled eggs and pickled eggs and boiled eggs and scrambled eggs and over easy. We got a bunch of eggs. I'm just teasing. Anyway, we're getting caught up and not making it into Canaan over things that really aren't that important. That's where they're at. I want you to see tonight, I want to really preach on this thought, herding cattle instead of serving the Lord. Herding cattle instead of serving God. Here they are, they have the opportunity to go into Canaan. They have the opportunity to get into this victorious Christian life. They have the opportunity to be there. And here's the confrontation. Verses 4 and 5. Even the country which the Lord smote before the congregation of Israel is a land for cattle, and thy servants have cattle. Let this land be given unto thy servants for possession. Bring us not over Jordan. We see Jordan. We know everybody else wants to go in Jordan, but this is a good land for our cattle. Won't you just let us stay here? In other words, we're not going to go back to Egypt, but we're not going to go to Canaan either. We won't go all the way back out in the world, preacher. We won't go all the way over that direction, but we don't necessarily want to go all the way to this direction either. That doesn't describe the church of today. I don't know what does. We're wanting to serve the Lord, and we want God to do stuff in our lives, and we wanting people to get saved, and we're wanting our children to turn out right, and we're wanting this to happen and that to happen as far as our walk with the Lord, but then we don't want to do what it takes to get into Canaan. The confrontation, their reasoning that they want to stay here is because we've got cattle. Oh, what a reason. I don't want everything you got for me, Lord, because of what I've already got. Wonder how many of us are missing out on what God could do in our lives, where we could be with the Lord, because we don't want to let go of what we've already got. I just got done preaching Sunday night at the church on discipleship, and you remember that the Lord's over there talking to him in Luke chapter number 9, I believe it is, and those guys approach him and talk about, I want to follow you, and he said, that's wonderful, but foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man had nowhere to lay his head. Next one, he says, follow me. And he says, well, I will, but I need to go back and bury my daddy first. And the next one says, he says, you follow me. And he says, well, can I go say goodbye to the people back at my house? And we've got a generation walking around saying, I'll follow you, Lord, but I want to be in Canaan. I want to have victory in my Christian life. I want to serve you. I want to do what you want me to do. But I've got cattle. I've got cattle. Notice the confrontation. I notice the complacency. Verse number 5, bring us not over Jordan. We're satisfied right here. Right here. We're okay where we're at. We don't want to be back in our sin, but we don't necessarily want to be where the Lord wants us to be either. We're complacent, content. We are the church of Laodicea. We know what we could have. We know what we used to have. We don't want neither one of them. We'll just be right here. I mean, as long as we're not doing what we used to do, and we're not hanging out with that crowd anymore. We're not doing those things anymore. But we're not going to get all in either. Brother Prince just preached it. I mean, the best way to get the pool, just jump in. And most of us just going to sit around the edge. We just want to hang out where the water's at. We just want to hang out where the pool. We don't want to get in. We just want to be on the outskirts of it. The complacency. That church of Laodicea, you begin to study those churches out and begin to realize the correlation there between the history of the church age, and you find a church that was persecuted, a church that was beaten, and a church that went through just torture after torture, and it seemed as though that the more Satan fought and the more Satan tortured, the more he persecuted, the more they grew. And here we are in Laodicea. And he's decided that he's not going to torture, and he's not going to fight, and he's not going to persecute. He's just going to give you everything you want. And we're living in a place of luxury, and we're content. We're content. Man, as they were being persecuted, souls were being saved. As they were being persecuted, people were getting right with God. As they were being persecuted, folks were saying, watching them die at the stake and watching them not recant the name of Christ, and folks were getting right with the Lord, and people's looking at us and doing nothing. Our complacency is destroying us. Notice their complacency, but I want you to see tonight the comparison. The cattle was keeping them from getting into Canaan. Preacher, I ain't got no cows. I ain't got none either. I got a lot of cattle. There's a lot of cattle. There's a lot of things in my life that just hindering where I really ought to be. A lot of things that I've got that really just don't need to be there. And they're hurting my relationship with the Lord. I began thinking and walking through the Scripture, and I probably missed some, but I began thinking about different cases in the Bible where people made decisions based off their cattle, whether it be their sheep or their oxes or their pigs. I mean, just the different cattle, the different animals that they raised and had. I thought about, that fitting into us in this day and time. So many times we make decisions concerning our walk, our spiritual walk with the Lord based off our job, based off our pride, based off our hobbies, based off our sin. We are keeping ourselves out of Canaan because of our cattle. Thought about Exodus 32. You know what happens over in Exodus 32? That's where Moses has been up on the mountain there, and he's got the 10 Commandments, and him and Joshua come back, and Joshua says, it sounds like there's a noise of war in the camp. And Moses lends an ear, and he said, that's not a noise of war. He said, they're throwing a party. What in the world's going on down there? That's sound of dancing and music. And he takes off down there, and sure enough, there they are. They're all worshiping this golden calf. He calls Aaron over there. He said, Aaron, what's going on? He said, I don't know, Moses. He said, the people, they didn't think you were coming back, and they told me that they needed something to worship. He said, so I told them all to bring their earrings and their jewelry and their gold and just to bring it to me, and we threw it in the furnace, and we shut the door, and then we opened it up, and this cow jumps out. We laugh at that and think, cow just jumped out. We know better than that. How many situations we gotten ourselves into? We've held our hands up to the Lord and said, I don't know how I ended up here. I don't know how this happened. We're having to look at our wife and say, I don't know what happened, honey. She's having to look at her. I don't know. Yeah, you do. You started entertaining things you should never entertain. You started listening to things you shouldn't have never listened to. You started going places you had no business going. That cow didn't just jump out. You created that thing. That cow didn't just pop out of the furnace. You made that cow. And that cow that you made is keeping you from Canaan. Thought about Genesis 13. Genesis chapter number 13, Lot and Abraham. The Bible says that Lot has been blessed because he's been close to Abraham. And they've just grown. Their cattle's grown. Their livestock's grown. And Abraham's herdsman and Lot's herdsman has been fighting over the land. And so Abraham comes down. He said, Lot, we've got to separate. He said, there's just too much cattle here. There's enough land that we don't have to fight over these things. We don't have to be at odds over these things. He said, I'll tell you what I'll do, Lot. He said, whatever you choose, I'll take the rest. And Lot separates from Abraham and says, he looks over to the well-watered plains of Jordan. He says, I'll take that over there. And he makes his decision. Has nothing to do with Sodom and Gomorrah. Has nothing to do with the city and what's going over there. He makes his decision based off his cattle. He looks and he says, that'll be a good place for my cattle to graze. I believe I'll take that. But it was close enough to the city that it got him in trouble. I wonder how many times we've made decisions not based off our prayer, not based off our Bible reading, not based off what's been preached from the pulpit, but because we thought it would be good for our cattle. Preacher, I just think it'd be good if my kids, might be good if your kids stay in some Bible preaching. Preacher, I just think it might be good if this job opportunities come up and yeah, I know it's going to pull me out of church some, but it's going to really help us fight. You start making decisions based off your cattle, you're liable to never get over in Canaan. Thought about Mark chapter number 5. Mark chapter number 5, Jesus heals the maniac of Gadara. I mean, what a transformation. What an event that takes place there as he heals that maniac. And I mean, people come in and they see him and they're like astonished at who he is. He's clothed and in his right mind, and he's talking sense now. I mean, this is wonderful. Where's my pigs at? What happened to my pigs? Well, whenever he healed the maniac, he ran those devils out in the pigs, and the swine took off and they ran off the cliff and he drowned my pigs. Yeah, but he healed this maniac. I mean, he saved this fellow. He's put him back in his home, and he's now a daddy again. He's a husband again. He's walking with the Lord. He's serving God. But he killed my pigs? Yeah, but he helped this man. What about my pigs? Isn't it amazing how bent out of shape people get when you start trying to do things at the house of God, trying to win people to the Lord, start trying to whether it's spending money, whether it's taking time, whether it's, a service like this, people get bent out of shape. You want me to come to New Year's service? We're trying to help people. We're trying to help people. Yeah, but what about my pigs? Who's going to take care of my pigs? You're killing my pigs. Told about Luke chapter 13 and 14. They've confronted Jesus 2 times here of healing on the Sabbath, feeding the disciples on the Sabbath. They come up to him and they said, look, you can't be healing people on the Sabbath. It's the Sabbath. Said, you can't be feeding your disciples on the Sabbath. You can't actually work and labor. Y'all should have prepared yesterday so you didn't have to do it today. What are you doing? He says, how many of you have animals and you didn't feed them today? How many of you have an ox that if it fell in a ditch, you wouldn't go get it out on the Sabbath? It got to the place where they were more concerned with the animals than they were men's souls. And we've gotten consumed with ourselves, gotten consumed with our activities and our hobbies, gotten consumed with our financial situations, and gotten consumed with how much we can spend and do and go, and the cars we can drive and the houses we can live in, that we've forgotten that there are souls that are lost and dying and going to hell. We've gotten ourselves in such financial shape that we can't give to missions. We can't tithe regularly. We can't. Why? Because of our cattle. We're more worried about taking care of our animals. End up getting y'all kicked off of YouTube here, but we've had a couple dogs over the years, and I love my dog. I mean, Hazel, she's a good dog. She's a wonderful dog. Keith said the other day, she ain't no blue girl. Some of you knew Blue Girl. Blue Girl was she was a blue heeler, and I mean, just a great dog. I mean, she protected the property, and, she walked out there one day, she's got a, snake copperhead by the neck and done slinging it around the yard and kills it. And my mama called me one day, and she's flipping out because Blue Girl's growling at her and attack her. She thinks this dog's done gone mad. She getting, you're going to have to come up here and do something about this dog, your dog. It was my dog whenever she was doing something like that. And now she lived up at Mama's house. I did buy the dog, and I did bring the dog home for my kids, but she lived up at Mama's house because Mama started feeding her. And so she called me. She said, this dog's going crazy. She won't let me get in the shed. Sure enough, I go up there, and I'm watching, and Mama would walk toward the shed, and Blue Girl would start growling and biting at her and push her back. And finally, it dawned on me, there's something in that shed she don't want you to get close to. And so turns out it was a skunk in there, and she was trying to keep my mama from going into the shed. I mean, just a good dog. And so I said, all right, Mama, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to hook a chain to the lawnmower, because skunk's up underneath the lawnmower. And I said, you're going to pull the lawnmower out, and I'm going to shoot the skunk. That's what we thought was going to happen. We yanked the lawnmower, that skunk run out. Before I could shoot, Blue Girl done took off and jumped all over that skunk. Didn't have that opportunity. I mean, killed it before it ever sprayed. I mean, she would own it. She was a good dog. Hazel's a pretty good dog. She ain't a Blue Girl. But here's the reality of that. It's just a dog. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings tonight. My dog stays inside. I ain't got her pinned up outside somewhere. If you do, great. Because they're just a dog. But mine gets to come in the house. But it doesn't change the fact she's a dog. She's not my baby. She's not my kid. She's a dog. You say, well, you see it however you want to see it. Whenever she has to go to the vet and they tell me it's going to cost $1,500 to have surgery, she a dog. I'm sorry. I know that don't say, I can tell by some of your faces. She's a dog. Now, lest you think real bad of me, if it was my kid, I'm going to fork out the money. All right? They come up and say, Colson needs to have surgery. We're going to pay for the surgery. Why? He's my child. There's a difference. Here's where we've gotten. We've gotten to the place that we're more concerned with our dogs than we are people dying and going to hell. We're taking better care of our animals than we are our missionaries. Notice the consequences. Notice the consequences. We're seeing this happen. And verses 10 through 13, Moses, he goes back and he says, don't you remember? Don't you remember that we've been here one other time? And there was a group that said we couldn't go in, and so God didn't let any of them go in. I said, Moses, it's Joshua. But God says he didn't let any of them go in. We don't want this to happen again. Notice what's going on. I mean, if y'all don't go in, none of us may get to go in. Now, we know the story. We know that God says, all right, if y'all want to stay there, y'all can stay there. And they say they're going to fight with them, and they're going to help them, and they're going to do it. So God, but this is, the mindset is, look, y'all about to mess this whole thing up. Here's what some of you don't understand. You're not just playing with the outcome of your own spiritual walk. You're not just messing with your own Canaan. You're messing with the Canaan of your children, your grandchildren, the friends of your children, the people around you in the church. You're not just affecting yourself. The consequences are you may be okay, but you may keep other people out of their Canaan as well. There's casualties. Verse number 7, he said, wherefore discourage ye the heart of the children of Israel from going over into the land which the Lord hath given them? Some of you not going into your Canaan, you're discouraging other people from getting into theirs. I'll never forget, the Lord dealt with my heart right here in this very church about going full-time in the ministry. 20 years ago now, I guess, right at it. I had no idea how I was going to support my family, what we were going to do, how we were going to, man, all I knew is the Lord told me to go. That's all I knew. And I knew that he told me when I was supposed to go. And so when the Lord first called me and told me that, I was excited. I was ecstatic. I went in the next week. I told my boss, I was supervisor of plant, and I said, look, the Lord's called me into full-time ministry. I said, and so I want to give you plenty of time. And this was long about November. I said, I want to go ahead and turn in my resignation. I said, I'll be leaving. My last day will be December 31st. Told me, he said, if it was anything else, he said, I'd try to offer you more money to keep you if it was another company trying to take you or whatever. He said, but you said you was going into the ministry. I don't want to do nothing but help you. I said, that's great. That's awesome. I'm gung-ho. We start getting our house in order. We move out of our house, move into a room over my mama's garage. We're trying to get bills paid off, get everything in order so that come January 1st, we can go full-time in ministry. That's the plan. That sounds great. That's wonderful. Until it started getting closer to time. Yes, sir. And I thought, how am I going to feed my family? How am I going to take care of my kids and my wife? Yes, sir. I ain't got no job. And I read a book about the life of Kenneth Kates. Kenneth Kates left and went to the Amazon with $25 a month support from his home church on a one-way ticket. And I'll never forget reading that book. And I came home that night, and I said, if Kenneth Kates can do it, I can do it. I ain't going halfway around the world. I'm staying here in the States. I said, if he can go to the Amazon and he can stay for 40 years and leave on $25 a month support, and God can take care of him, then God can take care of me, and I'm going. And it's because he got into his Canaan that I was willing to get into my Canaan. And I've thought many times, what if Brother Kates never went? What if he looked at $25 a month support and thought, that ain't enough, I can't go, and he stayed working in the mill and he never left? I wonder if I'd ever went. And some of you not getting into your Canaan is keeping others from getting into their Canaan. I want you to see the conclusion. I'm done tonight. Luke chapter number 15. One more cow. Luke chapter number 15. It's the story of the prodigal son, verse number 27. I know the passage. I understand what's going on here. The prodigal son has left. He has come home, and they are throwing a feast. You remember this. They went out and they killed the fatted calf, and they brought it in. I mean, they're having a party. Look at verse number 27. And he said unto him, this is the older brother, thy brother is come, and thy father hath killed the fatted calf, because he hath received him safe and sound. We know what happens. The older brother, he gets upset. I've been here all these years. I've never left the Father's house. I've never left you. I've stayed here. I've served you. I've worked with you. I've never gone anywhere. You've never killed a cow for me. And Daddy says, yeah, but this is our son who was lost. We're going to kill the fatted calf for him. We're thankful that he's back. I see the rejoicing in that. But after studying this out, I couldn't help but think. Give me liberty tonight. I understand what's taking place. But I couldn't help but think, in Daddy's wisdom, if he didn't kill what sent him out in the first place. The fatted calf was their money. Fatted calf, that was their market. Fatted calf, that was their farmers. He said, son, your brother's home. I'm getting rid of what tempted him the first time. We're going to eat the fatted calf tonight. We're going to eat and we're going to rejoice because he's home. But we're going to kill that temptation that took him away to begin with. Here's the question tonight as the preacher comes. You got a fatted calf in your life you need to kill? Is there some cattle that's going to keep you out of Canaan this year? Preacher.